Today, we're looking at what does Congress do and what are the differences between the two chambers of Congress, the House and the Senate. To complete this, you're going to want to fill out the sheet that is on the Moodle. So make sure you take differences of legislative branch sheet and you fill it out as we go along this online lecture. So let's get started here. The first difference and the most obvious difference is in the total number of members. Now the Senate has 100 members in it. That's 2 per state. Doesn't matter if it's Wisconsin, if it's California, or if it's the Dakotas, any of the Dakotas. It is 2 members per state, meaning the Senate has 100 members. The Senate has 100 members in it. Now the House of Representatives is a little bit different. It contains 435 members. Now this number is not set in the Constitution. It's actually passed by law. Now they arrived at this number because they were probably just sick of adding chairs for the growth in population. So the House of Representatives, each state gets 1 member for roughly 750,000 people. So take a state like Wisconsin. They get 8 seats in the House of Representatives. They are 8 of the 435. That means Wisconsin has 8 times 750,000 people for its population. So do you think that's a lot? Consider California. They get 53 seats in the House, which means they have 750,000 times 53 for their population. So House of Representatives is based on population, meaning the more people you have, the more seats you get out of those 435. While representation is one big difference between the House and the Senate, it's not the only one. We have to consider their length of term as well, or how long they serve in each consecutive chamber, or in each individual chamber. The Senate has longer terms. If you win election, you serve for 6 years. If you're in the House of Representatives and you win, you have to rerun every 2 years for your job. So Sean Duffy, our representative in the House of Representatives, has to rerun for election every 2 years if he wants to keep his job. But at the Senate, like Tammy Baldwin and Ron Johnson, they get to keep that job for 6 long years. Now, both the House and the Senate, you can serve an unlimited amount of terms. That means if you win an election forever and ever and ever, you can continue to run and win and keep your job forever and ever and ever. Both the Senate and the House have an unlimited number of terms, not like the president. The president can only win 2 terms and that's it. But the House and the Senate, you can represent your whole life. But before you want to serve, or before you can serve, there are some certain requirements you must meet, and they're a little bit different depending on which chamber of Congress we're talking about. So let's look at the Senate. In order to be a senator, you must be 30 years old. You must have been a U.S. citizen for 9 years. So you don't have to be natural born, but you do have to have passed the naturalization test to become a citizen. All right, so you have to have been in here for 9 years, and you must live in the state that you wish to be elected from. So I can't represent New York because I live in Wisconsin. Or I can't go and represent Illinois if I move to California. Now I can move to Illinois and represent Illinois if I win, but I have to live in the state that I'm representing. Now, the House of Representatives have similar requirements, but they are a little bit different. Starting with the age, you only have to be 25 years old to be a representative in the House of Representatives. You only have had to have been a citizen for 7 years. So once again, you don't have to be naturally born an American citizen, but you do have to have been naturalized as a citizen. Take the test, all right, for 7 years. And once again, you have to be a resident of the state you were elected from. Now, both of these chambers have somebody who's kind of in charge of the day-to-day operations and is kind of the boss of that chamber, and they're a little bit different. So let's go over those. In the Senate, you have the president of the Senate, and that's this gentleman here. Now, the president of the Senate doesn't do much, but he does cast the deciding vote if the Senate was split, say 50-50, on a certain law that's passing. because we have an even number of people, we have to have that one extra vote, just in case we tie, that will decide what we do. Okay, so this president of the Senate, now he may look familiar to you because this president of the Senate is actually our vice president. This is Joe Biden. So his role is not only vice president of the United States, but it's also the president of the Senate. Okay, but remember, his role in the Senate isn't super important unless there's a tie, because then he'll cast the deciding vote. Now this gentleman over here on the right, he is the presiding officer, or the guy in charge of the House of Representatives. And he is what's called the Speaker of the House. Now this gentleman's name is John Boehner. And John Boehner has a big role in Congress because he sets the rules, basically, and the conduct of the House of Representatives while he's in charge. And he'll be elected Speaker of the House by his party, by the majority party. Now, he also has a very important role in the executive branch, and that is because he is second in line to the President of the United States if something were to happen. So if the President dies and the Vice President dies, this guy, the Speaker of the House, becomes the President. Now, Congress has three major roles, one of which we know really well, which is making laws. But they also have what's called an oversight function. And their most important feature of the oversight function is something called impeachment. Now, impeachment is a constitutional process for kicking out officials in the government, especially, or if they have done something to violate the standing of the office they're in. Now, the best example of this is President Bill Clinton. He cheated on his wife when he was a president of the United States, and then he lied about it under oath. And this came up in public, that he had deceived America, had lied under oath, and the House of Representatives, their role is to see if should he be removed from office and impeached. So impeachment is a two-part process, and the House of Representatives, they voted to impeach Bill Clinton. They said what you did was an abuse of power for being the President of the United States, and you should be impeached for it. Now, that doesn't mean he loses his job, but he now has the possibility of losing his job. So Bill Clinton was impeached, but then it goes to the Senate, and the Senate decides, should this person be removed from office? And they listened to the facts of the case, and they said basically, what you did was wrong, you should be embarrassed. However, it didn't ruin your ability to be president. So we are not going to remove you from office. So even though the House impeaches somebody, the Senate must remove them before the impeachment is complete. So Bill Clinton was impeached, but he was not removed. Now, another big feature of Congress is controlling the purse, or controlling the money of our government. And the way they do that is through taxes and money bills. Now, both chambers of Congress have a role in money bills, but they all start in the House of Representatives. They have to start in the House of Representatives. Even if a senator has a really good idea for a tax, they can't introduce that idea in the Senate. They have to convince somebody in the House to introduce it in the House. So it's real funny when we see these bumper stickers that blame presidents for high taxes or thank them for low taxes, because the president can't do anything but suggest it. It's the House of Representatives that must start it, and it's the Senate that must approve it. So both have a role in money and in money bills, but the House starts it and the Senate will approve it. An additional role that the members of Congress have is left up just to the Senate, and this is nominating or approving Supreme Court justice nominations. The Senate must approve Supreme Court justice nominations and any other position that the president wants to appoint somebody to, while the House of Representatives, they don't get any role in that process. They get no say in it. So if the president likes a person and he convinces the Senate that they'd be a good fit, they get the job. Nobody in the House of Representatives can really complain about it or do anything to stop the process. So any nominations, presidential nominations, the Senate must approve what the president wants to do, but the House of Representatives is left out in the cold. That's not the case when it comes to declaring war, however. Both the Senate and the House of Representatives must approve a president's declaration of war. Now, they have to ask. The president actually has to ask to go to war. They can't just march troops all over the place and start declaring war. They have to go through Congress. And that's a safeguard to prevent tyranny, so that we don't have some president who's just marching our troops all over and attacking everybody. Okay? They have to get authorization to use those forces through Congress. And both houses have to approve. Both the Senate and the House of Representatives have to approve in order for war to be declared. Now, since they both have a role in declaring war, it would make sense that they also both have a role in raising and supporting an army and navy. Okay, so the Senate and the House of Representatives have to agree on the use of military force as well as the funding for it. Okay, so it's not up to the president. The president can ask and plead and beg and demand all he wants, but it's up to Congress. It's up to Congress. Now, the last thing, and maybe this is our last thing, the last thing we're going to be talking about today in the differences between the House and the Senate are the idea of confirming treaties. Now, senators are there for 6 long years, and they usually win re-election, so they may be there for 12, 18, 24, 30 years or more. They have, as a result, a larger role in confirming treaties and dealing with foreign governments and foreign operations because they're there quite a bit longer. And there's only 100 of them. Now, the House of Representatives, they have no role in confirming treaties. There's 435 of these people. They only serve 2 years. They might not be there as long to develop relationships and an understanding of these foreign treaties. So the Senate has a larger role in advising the president and approving treaties that the president brings back from other countries. Now, these are just some of the big differences between the two chambers in Congress. Flip your sheet over and go on to the Moodle and continue this conversation by looking at the different people that make up both of these chambers.